So hello, we are here today at Microsoft UK's headquarters in Reading. We're about to go inside and speak to their Chief Technical Officer, Michael Wignall. Come on in. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us here on Spark, our digital innovation channel. I'm very glad to say that I have Michael Wignall, the Chief Technical Officer here at Microsoft UK, alongside me. So first of all, Michael, can I just ask you to talk a little bit about your role here at Microsoft?
Sure. Well, first, pleasure to be here, really. Thank you for taking the time. I'm responsible for our overall technology strategy for Microsoft in the UK. So I sit on our board and I work with our corporate engineering teams as well as our local teams to listen to what our customers are saying, listen to their requirements, and then bring the right technology to market. Our mission is around empowering people and organisations around the planet to achieve more. It's my job to make sure that's applicable to the UK and help the UK to achieve that outcome.
The first question that we've been asking a lot of people is, so what is innovation to you?
So we are an innovation company. Microsoft's 42 years old this year, and so have gone through a couple of waves of innovation. Innovation for me is really around thinking in a new way about new products, services, or processes and thinking. It's not necessarily bringing something brand new to market, but thinking about maybe the existing services we deliver or the existing products we deliver in a different way. The outcome should be better end results for our customers. The outcome should be something tangible that impacts our bottom line or our business or impacts our customers' business. But it's about thinking about it in a new way and thinking about it around the whole breadth of the organisation.
So in terms of trying to take that new approach, is culture kind of central to that? We're in a lovely space here in Microsoft, which is all very swanky and colourful.
Yep.
Is sort of that culture and putting people in the right environment central to how you approach innovation?
Absolutely. I think there's two elements to it, and they almost bookend innovation. And a lot of this has come from the top, so a lot of this has come from our new chief exec, Satya Nadella, and he talks about having the right purpose and the right culture. And actually purpose and culture together drive the right outcome for innovation, because there's always going to be new technology changes, new global economic changes in the political environment, the macroeconomic environment. So you can't necessarily always future-proof yourself against those changes, but if you've got the right mission and purpose and the right culture, then you can be pretty confident about having the right outcome. And so at Microsoft we have that purpose, which is about to empower everyone to achieve more, and then we have a culture around a growth mindset and a bunch of other elements I'm happy to talk about that really allow us to be flexible and adaptable to these changing environments.
So you touched there on Satya coming in and bringing this idea around purpose and culture. He's recently been talking about how there was a need when he came in as CEO to kind of hit refresh,
Yep.
as he sort of termed it.
Yep.
What does that kind of mean, and why was that needed for such a global brand?
Yeah, I mean, from a Microsoft point of view, obviously we've been very successful, and we've had, in that 42 years, we've had 3 chief execs. So there's Bill Gates, who everyone is familiar with, one of our founders, and then there was Steve Ballmer, who kind of ran it for 10 years, and then Satya came in about 3 years ago. And what Satya saw when he came in is, yes, we were highly successful. And actually, if you think about our original mission statement, the original purpose of the company, it was around putting a PC on every desk in every home in the world. And we were very highly successful at that. But it didn't address what you did with that PC necessarily. It was about the outcome for Microsoft, not the outcome for our customers. And so with Satya coming in, he's just released a book in September called Hit Refresh, where some of this terminology's come through. And he was reflecting on, actually he's only 3 years into his tenure of a 42-year company. Is it right for him to write a book at this point about the impact he's had? And he really did feel, yes, it was, because it was a reflection on the big cultural change in the journey we've had in the last 3 years. And the principle of hit refresh, some of it comes from a tech background. And you're in your browser and you hit refresh. It's refreshing elements of what you want to look at, but not everything. It's not about completely changing your entire business model, but adapting it for the modern world and some of the changes that we're facing. And in particular, from a Microsoft perspective, we were very highly successful in a lot of areas like the desktop and Windows and like office productivity. But again, the world has changed. It's much more mobile now and people connect in very different ways. There's a big shift to the clouds and cloud technologies. The way people collaborate has changed differently. And so it was recognized internally that we need to adapt to some of those changes because our competition are adapting to it. And we faced a bit of the innovator's dilemma. We had very highly successful products and services, but they would be very profitable and keep us in a good place in the short term, but might not necessarily set us up for success in the longer term. So Satch's his change and his approach from a cultural perspective and a purpose perspective has completely changed the way the company structures. And like we were talking about before, I joined Microsoft about 10 years ago, and I joined just as Microsoft released Windows Vista, and it was in that era of Microsoft was very much a Windows desktop and Office company, and where we are now 10 years on is completely different. It's all about the cloud and about providing this empowering organizations and individuals to achieve more.
Well, you touched on Vista there. I do remember it from, admittedly, when I was back in school. I don't mean to make that sound like I'm too young. But so with those sort of innovations, I guess when you were sort of rolling it out, you would have kind of said, this is the next big thing. But you're talking about innovation in the context of it needs to be thinking a lot further on than that. Is that sort of what you're thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, we have to do both. When you look at some of the product innovation we've done, it has been incremental, and we've not always got it right. And there has been, we've been victims of our own success, in that some products have been hugely successful, and our install base, consumer base, is hundreds of millions of people. But when it's so successful in that context, it's sometimes hard to shift people to the new and better things because you've got so many people used to the old way and they've adopted it in a very way. So sometimes, because of that user base, you need to be incremental. You can't just throw the baby out the bathwater, you need to grow. But sometimes the entire paradigm shifts. It moves from actually being very desk-focused to much more mobile in one example, or it moves from in the tech world, server, client to cloud focus. These are industry-wide paradigm shifts in how technology is consumed, and we need to think differently and completely change our thinking and some of our innovation approaches to do that. So we have to do both, and we have to be monitoring what's happening in the market and what the competition's doing, but at the same time making sure we keep our existing customers happy, and that's part of the big challenge we've got. Some of the new players in the field don't have some people call it legacy, I call it heritage. Don't have that heritage in existing customer satisfaction in our products and services. So we have to look after that, but at the same time we have to make sure we're ready for the next big thing that's coming along.
And so taking that kind of dual track approach as such, so looking at your current customer base and looking forward to the future, how much do you think that is kind of driven by leadership? You've spoken about Satya and sort of his vision for Microsoft, but is there an element that it also has to kind of be bottom up as well as top down?
Yeah, it definitely needs to be both. It needs to be top down and bottom up. I think the top down is the place to start by setting that purpose and helping drive the culture. But unless the culture is embedded everywhere, it won't be successful. So the leadership can set the purpose and the mission, and the leadership can set the principles around culture. But then we need to have that through the rest of the management community and through the people on the ground to make it successful. One of the big things that Satya did that has helped us jump from just incremental product updates and innovation to looking at some of the future is breaking down some of the internal silos. And so it used to be that we were very much, there was the Windows division and there was the Office division and the server division, and success in one area wouldn't necessarily bleed over to the next and wouldn't necessarily bleed over the next. And he's very much reconfigured and changed some of the structure from the top down to support working collaboration across that. He's also helped change through our Chief People Officer some of the incentives and the way that we're measured internally. So we are measured, and I'm measured, and everyone at Microsoft is measured on individual impact, so stuff that I'm doing, helping others succeed. So what I'm doing to help my colleagues be successful, but also building on the success of others. So I won't be successful unless I can demonstrate to my leadership that I'm taking ideas, collateral, product features, code, and bringing it into my work. And unless I'm doing all three of those things, actually that directly impacts my performance review at the end of the year. So that's a top-down leadership directive, but bottom up, it helps foster a culture of I want to work with you because actually I can help you succeed and you can help me succeed, and that helps us collectively together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That kind of covers, because you are an organisation with overall well over 100,000 people, and I guess it's quite complicated in terms of how can you make sure that all of the knowledge of that many people is sort of brought into one central place.
Yeah, there's a challenge around institutional memory, and we were talking about that. There's kind of different eras of people at Microsoft. People have been around 20 plus years, 10-ish years like me, people in the last couple of years with this transformation. So the culture around those, how we're measured and structured, helps that learning, and we're incentivized, and it's part of our core mindset to do that. The tools and processes also do as well. So, as a Microsoft employee, we use our own capabilities in-house. We use technology to help us collaborate, to talk to each other, whether we're in the office or geographically dispersed, and we work in the open. And so, we have a CEO connection Yammer page on one of our tools where anyone can ask Satya a question and he answers it in the open, and people, talk about it. And if it gets sensitive, maybe it gets hived off, but in general, we're encouraged to do that. And that helps us in the UK. There's a few thousand of us. We've got a big knowledge here, work with our colleagues in other countries, work with corporate engineering in Redmond and Seattle. And so the culture and the tools really foster that sense of collaboration and therefore innovation.
Well, collaboration is something I really want to talk about now then. If we start to look outside of Microsoft, how do you sort of collaborate with organisations which are outside of these fantastic campuses that you have, and why do you do that?
Well, interestingly, again, a lot of it, some of it's come top down, and there's a change of strategy. So historically, Microsoft was very insular. It was Microsoft products on Microsoft products. You'd run Windows, Office would only run on Windows, you'd Internet Explorer. And though we were open in the context, we'd run on lots of other different hardware platforms. The software ecosystem was very tightly integrated. And it still is, and there's benefit for that, but we've taken a much, much more open and partnership approach in the last couple of years to drive better interaction with other organizations. And one of the first things Satya did when he came on board was to release Office on the iPad. And even now, I think, why on earth wouldn't we have had Office on the iPad? And if you look on the top 10 apps on the Apple Store, the first 4 are Word and PowerPoint and Excel and the like. So what he's done is help collaborate with our competitors, and then collaborate with other partners and then industry organisations, again from a cultural perspective, because we see it as beneficial to the ecosystem as a whole. Ecosystems are really important, partnership is really important, and if we only focused on ours and only made it work with ours, we're hugely missing out on areas of innovation and ideas that exist elsewhere. So again, culturally, the structure and the approach is actually, it's all right to work with others, you've got that air cover, and then procedurally it's around ensuring you're doing it in a compliant, safe and secure way. We want to work with a customer organisation that might be working on a problem that's to do with customer data, and we want to make sure we can work with them in a way using the right tools that means we're not taking or using the data in a way that isn't appropriate, but that helps us collectively achieve our outcome. And so you will have seen we've done a lot more around us building capability into the products that work with competitors' products, but also just us opening up our technology to others to use, and open sourcing functionality for people to adopt. So the air cover and the process procedures have really helped. Some of the co-working areas, we bring lots of customers and partners in here, and also a lot of working on their premises, going to site and actually having Microsoft people out and about. I think the other thing to say about the partnership working is, we've got 100,000 people in the company worldwide. The UK's got a couple of thousand, but in the UK we work with over 30,000 partner organisations that employ about 250,000 people. And these are UK companies by and large, a lot of them small companies, SMEs, who work with our technology and take it and implement it with end customers. So that kind of is built into our DNA as well. We have to partner with other organisations to go back to the mission statement, to empower people and organisations to achieve goals.
Well, you touched a little bit on open sourcing there. That's something which has kind of been incredibly vogue recently, and open source data seems to be on every single magazine you see and every newspaper. Why particularly did you feel like that was a really big thing for you to do, and what are some of the examples of where you've used it?
Yeah, I think a good example, again, Microsoft historically has not been seen as necessarily friendly in that space. And some of it is about market. It's adapting to the market. We've seen a lot of adoption in open source technology and capabilities in the cloud space and in some of the technologies that sit on that side. And we want to be part of that market. We think we've got value to provide. So we looked at it, actually it's better to embrace that than to fight it. Again, a stat for that. So people think about Microsoft as the Windows organization. One of the big open source operating systems, you might think of a competitor of Microsoft is Linux, is a Linux-based operating system. And in our clouds, in our Microsoft Azure cloud, and the numbers change, and depending on when this goes out, the numbers may be different again. So they're not definite, but about a third of the servers, the virtual machines running on our cloud, are running open source software. So thinking actually 5 years ago, a third of our business running open source, that would be very wild out there issue. But now, because we've adapted and innovated, we're taking advantage of that. Customers are getting value, we're getting value, and we're taking advantage in that way. On open data as well, we're doing a lot around sharing data we have with other organizations, again, in an appropriate, compliant way. Particularly at the moment, we have to be aware of the general data protection regulation that's coming down the line from the EU. It gives citizens a lot of rights around their data, and we very much respect that. But we want to make sure that the right data, so not personally identifiable data, but data that's valuable to people, can be shared and used for the benefit of all.
Well, in keeping with the collaboration theme, I know that you are, and also because we are keeping current, don't worry, the stats may change, but we are keeping very current with this. You're going to soon be on a panel for something called the Microsoft Imagine Cup UK.
Yep.
Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So the Imagine Cup as a whole has been running for about 15 years, and it's our student or young person developer competition. And the idea is to foster innovation and foster new ideas. And this year in the UK, we've upped the prize money. So it's $100,000 on offer, and it's one of the biggest technology competitions in the UK. And the principle is getting students from all walks of life with different teams made up of different people with different disciplines, and they look for innovative ways to use technology. So they look for ways to apply new technology capabilities, whether it's cloud or artificial intelligence or mixed reality, to problems that they're seeing in society. And then they pitch and they present, and I'm on the panel to judge the UK rounds, and then the winners for the UK will get to go to Redmond and present to the worldwide against other countries around the world. And then Satya will, part of the prize is Satya does a mentoring session with those companies. And what we've seen over the last 15 years is a lot of those organizations, which are the student projects, go on to join our startup program, actually spin off small companies off the back of it and try to put some of these ideas into production. So it's not just about an idea for something cool. It needs to be something that from conception through to delivery is something that can be taken forward. So I'm really proud to be part of the panel, and it's something I think I remember, in my days as an engineering student back in Australia, the Imagine Cup being a big thing and something that you'd aspire to, because it's about getting, a good sense of the people that are enthusiastic about tech and bringing new ideas to the table.
You touched in that sort of answer about how the world is kind of changing, and that's how you bring in the Imagine Cup and how it can help you stay current and on trend. So I'll pose you a bit of a question here, potentially a tough one. Is there a perfect time to innovate?
No, I don't think so. I think there isn't a perfect point in time. I think the pace around innovation is increasing, and therefore your approach to innovation has to change right now. I think if you look at the typical innovator's dilemma, you've got that S-curve of incumbency, it takes a while to grow it, and then you've got a big uptick at outcome, but then it plateaus. And different ways you're looking at it say, well, actually that's harder for the incumbent to overcome that, and where do they innovate across that curve versus new entries to the market. In my opinion now, and Microsoft's definitely taking this approach, it has to be always on. We need to take an approach, and part of the culture of growth mindset is about a learn-it-all culture as opposed to a know-it-all culture. So it's about not assuming we know the answer, but trying things and failing fast, and then iterating on that. And so that has to be a constant process. And part of that is also, it's a data-driven approach. So how do you know if it's right? How do you know if you're innovating and you're getting the right result? It's by testing it. And then by seeing the data, testing it with customers, internal stakeholders, whoever it needs to be, and then tweaking it, getting a minimal viable product and tweaking it. So no, I don't think there's any one point. It's certainly not after you've got the right product and it's in there, because then you might be too late. You can't stop. You need to have like an Imagine Cup. These student developers are right at the start of that innovation bit, and they're starting now, and so they should start looking to the future and taking advantage of the new tech. But everywhere along that curve, you need to be thinking about innovation, in my opinion.
And Michael, I just want to ask you a little bit about the challenges of the future. What are the kind of big challenges that you think are coming about that people are going to need to innovate in response to?
So from a Microsoft perspective, and I agree with it, we want to look at everything on the planet. When we talk about the mission statements, powering people and organizations, everyone on the planet to achieve more. And so in that context, it's global things. It's things like global warming, it's the aging population, it's changes in demographics and the macroeconomic situation, it's issues like terror and extremism. It's helping people from a diversity and inclusion perspective. These are big issues. And so you might be thinking, well, where does Microsoft and a technology company fit into it? And so we do fundamentally believe that technology can be an enabler for change and supporting some of those initiatives. And so whether it's artificial intelligence and bots that can actually help in the social care arena for helping people in their homes as the aging population happens, or it's around mixed reality devices that let people interact in different ways from a remote perspective and bring people in rural areas together, or it's cutting edge technology that we're working on, like quantum computing, that we can apply to big problems like global warming. Those are the exciting things that I'm interested in. And obviously day to day we work with customers just around their core digital transformation, helping them engage with their customers and empower their employees and thinking about optimizing their operations. But it's some of those global issues which I think we all need to think about, and think about how technology and digital transformation and the innovation that provides can help us solve some of those big problems.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you're looking at innovation from the perspective of it can help every customer all along there. It can deal with all of these challenges, and it can help customers in vulnerable circumstances and things like that.
Yeah.
This has been fascinating. I need to ask you one final question, and that is, along your sort of journey of innovation, I realise that's a grandiose term, but journey of innovation, what would be your one message that you would give to other people who are looking at innovation and looking to innovate?
I'm going to cheat a little bit and have two parts of my one
thing,
but they're joined together, which is part of what I said at the start, which is innovation is a journey. It isn't a one and done. It needs to be a constant activity, and you need to bookend it with a mission or a purpose and a culture. And then actually it doesn't matter so much what you're innovating on, what type of problem you're facing. If you've got a purpose, you know what you're trying to achieve, and you've got a culture that supports that innovation, then you're set up for success for whatever problem you're tackling. So my one takeaway is think about, as an organization, what's the purpose that you're trying to achieve holistically across everything that you do, and then what's the culture that fosters that. And if you get those things right, then the innovation will follow.
Well, I think that's perfect. Well, we've had a purpose today of trying to excite and inspire water companies. I think that's a massive check. We've had a fantastic, I think it's been a nice sort of environment here, a good culture. So thank you very much, Michael, for joining us here on Spark, our digital innovation channel. And thank you very much for all of you for watching.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.